Sunday. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I see James, and I see Prairie, and I see Barbara, and Laura and Miranda, Leslie. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see everybody here. We're going to start with a little thing that I feel like I should talk about, and I think it's because some recent emails that I've gotten, I feel like I wanted to just talk for just a second about fear. We've talked a lot about fear, but I kind of wanted to, just in case now, and just so you know, this is it's a spiritually based show, and I answer your spiritual questions, and if I can't answer it through my own experience or through things that have come up, I will hand it over to my guides, and they will answer it for you. So it's and you can ask personal things if you want to, but if you do, I probably will kind of broaden it out so that it's for everyone, right? So it's kind of more collective rather than personal. But if that's the way you need to kind of, put it or whatever, that's fine. So sorry, I have allergies too. Fall's always there. So I wanted to talk about fear, and some of the emails that I've gotten have been, people fearful for different reasons, for different personal reasons and for collective reasons, right? And fear is, you hear people say like, fear is not real. Fear is an illusion. And I just want to explain, because sometimes people say, no, my fear is real. Trust me, it's real. It's a mind-made thing. Your mind makes it up, and your mind keeps you believing it, right? It's part of the ego, but it's part of the ego's way of making you feel like you're safe. Trying to keep you safe and trying to keep itself alive. The ego doesn't want ego death. It wants to be alive, wants to be useful and there for you. And so, but it can be, old stuff that kind of is there and kind of prompts the fear. A good maybe example is if you say you want to go back to college, right? You really want to go back to college and study. Well, your mind will come in and remind you, remember that time in third grade when you couldn't learn your times tables and everybody was making fun of you, and that was really bad. That was really embarrassing. And maybe you're not very smart. Maybe you should just stay home. Maybe that's not a good thing to do, right? And then you have this, and then this fear develops of going to school and being, vulnerable and things like that. It's a mind-made thing, and it will pop in and remind you of why you should, why you should be fearful, why you should be afraid. It will pull from your past, and it will also pull to an unknown future. What if the plane crashes? What if you get to that foreign country and you lose your money? How will you ever get home? It will build on the unknown too, to keep you fearful. But something that I have kind of put into practice over the last couple of years, and it's really just been the last couple of years, is I noticed that when I'm fearful of something, what it's really telling me is there is something there that I need to confront. There is something there, whether it's the past or just my fear of the future, there is something there that needs to be confronted. There's something there that needs to be looked at. There is something there that maybe needs to be healed, right? So I have started to see fear as a green light rather than a red light. Where before it would make me back off because I'm afraid, but now I know it's a green light. Something needs to be dealt with. And so I hope that you can think of it that way too, The other thing that I want to tell you that I've talked about on the channel as well many times is that your guides don't deal in fear. If your guides need to get a point across to you, or if they need to tell you something, even if it's something imminent, it won't come across in fear. They won't be making you afraid. That is a mind-made thing, and they don't exist in your mind. They may use your mind as a tool and pull from your imagination. Like when I do readings, they pull from my imagination, pull from my memory bank. But I'm in the present, and I'm very present. And my mind, I'm not actively thinking. My mind is relaxed and quiet. And that's when I know, this is coming in. But when it's fearful, when you're afraid and you're imagining all of the worst things that can happen, that is you. That's your ego. Even in an emergency, your guides will figure out ways to get the information across to you. For example, I'll give you a really good example. During the Loma Prieta earthquake, I was in it. You'd think that I would know what it was called. I think it was 1989, I think. Maybe it was 80. Yeah, I think it was 89. When that earthquake happened, one of the bridges collapsed on top, was double, an upper level and a lower level, and it collapsed, and it killed a bunch of people. And it was during rush hour. Well, that night, my dad was supposed to come home. That was the bridge he always took, always. But that night, he just decided to take another bridge. He thought, because it was during the World Series. And so he thought, maybe I'll just take the other bridge home. It'll be easier. And that's it. But that's how your guides talk to you. It'll feel like you just making a decision not to go. I'll go right instead of left. It's not going to come through in fear. And so I hope that you think of fear a little differently. Think of it as more of a whisper to kind of come over here and look at something, rather than something to make you back off, because that's what the ego wants you to do. It wants you to back away. The ego always wants to keep you small, keep you separate, and keep you fearful. That's what it wants to do. And so you really want to break out of that anytime you can. And fear is a good way to notice when you're being sort of nudged to look at something that needs attention. And so see it as a green light to walk towards it and see what's there. And it may be something to be confronted or looked at or healed. Okay? All right, everybody. So it wasn't the Bay Bridge. No, it wasn't the Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge did collapse, but it was a different bridge. I can't remember what bridge it was, but it was a different bridge. But yeah. The Bay Bridge kind of did like this. It kind of went like that. Like one part of it collapsed. This thing collapsed. I mean, the whole thing just went. And it was horrible. It was a horrible thing that happened. Okay, so let me get my glasses. Okay. Okay, so Annie. Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm curious to know if you were moved to do a fast when you decided to channel Gandhi, or did your fast attract Gandhi to come through? Well, I believe that because I use fasting and praying. Like I said, I've kind of learned that when I was in church. And so I've always used it as kind of a spiritual practice. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of my emphasis. Like I really, really, want attention to this and help with this. It's my golden ticket. But I did fast and pray on the day that I brought Gandhi in. I did, and I do think it was connected. I do think it was sort of just my way of getting maybe my vibration to a certain level, and also connecting on a physical level. Because his whole, he talked about, in our reading, he talked about how one of the things that he did in his life was kind of mastery over the physical form, right? Kind of transcending almost the physical form. And he did it through fasting. And so, yeah, I'm sure it was it's definitely a mechanism that I used on the day for sure. Yeah. And I should probably have put that up. Sorry about that. And thank you, Annie. Is the other side perfect, or does it have its own flaws that we work on together there too? I'm going to throw that one to the guides because I don't know the answer to that. No, it's not it's not flawed in the way that we think of as flawed. It's always in it, but it's always in a state of becoming. So it's always sort of they're showing like something under construction. So it's always growing and learning and growing in creativity and understanding, and there's always this expansion to it. So it's not that it's not flawed in the way that we think of as being flawed, but it is in a state of becoming. And so that's something that we do. Here it probably looks more like potential. You can see the potential, that kind of thing. But there it's because everybody is always learning, and so they're always expanding and bringing new things are welcomed into it, if that makes sense. And I feel it's interesting because I feel like so often it's just so different that it's really hard to fully grasp, that there would, even the fact that there is no fear, there's no fear, there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no death, there's no beginnings and endings, right? There's so many things that are conceptually hard to understand because it's just so different. So they would not use the word flawed, but they would use the idea that it's always in a state of becoming. Okay, so I hope that answers that. Okay. George Carlin said he goes to libraries on the other side. Is that him as the complete oversoul doing that, or do the aspects that incarnate each maintain their own identities and each do their own thing on the other side? What a good question. Crystal blue. So I'm being made to feel that it's that aspect, because that's the part that the oversoul is working on right now. So when he said that, he meant that aspect of himself. So that's why he was talking to us, as he was talking to us as that person. What do you do? I'm I guess he said he's like, I can't remember everything, but he's looking at the library, or going and working in the library. And that is, they're making me feel like that it's that aspect, because that's the aspects that's been we're working on right now, right? That's the aspect that's maturing and having this whole experience. And so, and it's trying to maybe understand it, wrap it up, look at other things that may have helped, or maybe we're maybe other ways to integrate the experience. I also do feel that they just said the word on behalf of. So I feel like he's whole on the other sides, but that aspect is, it's almost like that aspect is still working on itself on behalf of, or this the oversoul, we'll say the oversoul or the higher self will go to the library on behalf of this aspect. So it's not as though he's all in pieces walking around. He's a whole soul, right? He's a whole soul. But this, I'm asking for an example because I feel like this is hard to understand. It's hard to understand for me. So I'm basically asking for myself. What do you mean? Give me an example. Okay. So they're giving the example of someone who maybe is a teacher, going to school to be a teacher. And so they go to school to be a teacher, and they, go teach in a classroom. And at the end of the day, they go home. And it's almost like that. And at home, other parts of their personality reside, right? They're the wife, the mother, and they're using this as an example of just like how the oversoul and aspects of the soul works. But when you're even though you're home and all of your titles come together, you still might pull out some books and think about your teaching, even though you're not in the classroom, you're not going to school, but you're home and you're kind of relaxed with all the other aspects that you are, or all the other parts of your personality that you are, the wife, the mother, the pet owner, the neighbor, the sister, the daughter, you're all of these things that kind of all comes together when you're home and relaxed and just being yourself in your own little world. But in that space, you might go into the bedroom and work on some teaching stuff, right? That's an example they're kind of giving. So I hope that, and that helps me to understand kind of what we're talking about. So, so as that aspect wants to go and look at the library and understand things a little bit more as that person, or if it were in that analogy as the teacher, I want to learn more about teaching and how to be a better teacher. And so I start looking at teaching stuff, even though all of the aspects are free to be what they are in that space of being at home. Okay, so I hope that answers that. That was a really good question. I mean, all of these questions are always, you guys are always too great at asking questions. That's why we do this. I would never think about any of these questions. I've heard that two people need to be vibrating at a similar level in order to have a successful relationship. Is this true? So they're saying not quite. The reason you may come together is because you kind of your baseline vibration is kind of similar. And that's what we talk about when we talk about people that resonate with us. That's what it is. They're kind of at that same resonance, and that's there, because we all have kind of a baseline where we kind of live most of the time. And when we're constantly raising our vibration, that baseline can move up. So we don't really often go below that unless there's a death or something really traumatic happens or something, we might dip, but we kind of go to back to that baseline. And so when you meet someone, you might recognize you're both at that baseline, and so you resonate with each other. But within that relationship, you may have periods where you go up and down, but you kind of always meet at that level. So it's how you might find each other and want to make a relationship. But within a relationship, people can go up and down a lot, because that's the realm we're in. If someone, say you came together and you're both kind of at your baseline, and so you both kind of recognize each other, but let's say within the relationship, one person starts to really get into spirituality and the other person becomes addicted to drugs, right? Then where you still may have this kind of baseline where you normally are, but your activities and what you're doing and what you're immersed in is kind of maybe slightly lowering where they used to be, so that because they're really in the depths a lot, and so their baseline might move down a little bit. And for you, because you're always in the spiritual realm and you're always, seeking to, connect with your divinity and let go of the ego, that yours is, and so there's that, right, that mismatch now, because you can move your baseline, but it takes consistency to do that. So I hope that, yeah, so I was end with, I hope that answers that question, but I hope it answers that question. Oh, okay. So pray for butterflies free. Butterflies are free. Having a cardiac ablation on the 25th. Okay. We will pray that everything will work out well, work out great. Your surgery will be perfect. You'll have a swift recovery, and you'll be a-okay. All right. Okay, Gina. Hi, Gina. The channel being Bashar says this life is a dream, and we have actually never left spirit. We are with our crossed over loved ones. How can we experience our oversoul and be with loved ones? Okay. So this is what we talk about when we talk about the present moment and we're pulling away from the thinking mind, right? Because if Humpty Dumpty is doing anything for the collective that's really, really useful, it's us being able to see what it looks like when someone is completely immersed in ego. They have no idea that they are a divine being, have absolutely no clue. They're completely wrapped up and completely bought in to the fact that they are just a human. They, are completely separate from everybody else. There's, they have to compete. They have to keep, they have to hold on to their stuff. Everybody's out to get them. There's like paranoia and fear and all these things. And if he's doing anything for us, that's something that he's doing, is letting us see what it looks like when someone is completely taken over by the ego, and how awful and how dangerous and how yucky it can be. When we let go of the thinking mind, because that's where all of the construction is. That's where all of the construct is about who we are, about our past and our personality. And I'm a woman, and I live in California, and I'm a liberal, and I have all these labels that we put on ourselves, and all of these things. It's all kept up here, and it's always swimming around. And when we have something that challenges it, it gets activated, right? So, that is all the thinking mind and the ego. The thinking mind basically keeps everything, keeps you kind of locked in, and wants to try to draw you into the persona, the identity. But really, It's not true. We're spiritual beings that have chosen our blueprint and our layout, and chose our parents and where we'd be from and what color we would be and what nationality we would be, to best serve the things we wanted to learn, the things we wanted to understand, or the things we wanted to wrap up or whatever. So that's what I think Bashar is talking about, is that all of this is just a constructed story to help us learn. Think about the play, right? And think about, so they're taking it a step further. I was just when I said the play, so they're talking about, okay, say you're an actor, right? You're an actor in a play, right? You're the soul that's about to go to Earth and play this part. So you walk out on stage and there's all the other actors, and all the other actors are playing their part. And waiting in the wings are other actors that are done with their part. They're finished. So they're waiting in the wings. And when we sit in that seat of the soul, we let go of the thinking mind and we're in the present. We're in that soul space. And it is sort of like we drift, when we get into go back to the actor, we belong sort of in the wings rather than on the stage, right? Because that makes more sense, right? Because we're pulling into that actor part of us, not the part that we're playing. So what I feel like he's saying is that when we drop the identity and we're out of the thinking mind, we're in the present, that means we're connecting, and we're kind of connecting back into, and we can feel it. To me, I always feel like it's almost like it moves forward. With our real self, our soul self, our higher self moves forward. That's kind of what I always think of it as we kind of drop this, whatever this is, the illusion. We drop the illusion, and that trueness of ourselves comes forward. And it's being connected with that can connect us to the other side and connect with our loved ones. And like I said, when we drop the illusion, it's almost like that's where we belong, because we dropped that all. It's not convincing us anymore. It's not drawing us in anymore. We dropped it, and now we can more fully go allow our soul to come forward and remember who we really are, right? And when we do that, when we drop the part of the play, we belong in the wings, right? We belong. That's how we're all connected, right? We aren't these parts. We're actors, right? So that's where we belong. We're all the other actors, talking about, oh, wasn't that fun? Wasn't that interesting? And blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that I think that part of the problem is that we always want to access these things with our senses, and we don't. We don't. And and that's why I always say it's really important to ask for and work for your own experiences, because you're not really seeing with your eyes, you're not really hearing with your ears. It's felt on a different level, and to the closest thing, the closest way that we can kind of dip into the being with our friends and family on the other side is feelings. I think that's probably because you do feel it more than you might see it or hear it. And I think that what happens is we kind of think, well, if I let go of the thinking mind and I move into my soul, that all of a sudden I'm going to see all my relatives, and I'm going to see everybody, and it's going to be like I'm just there. And that's not really the way it works while we're still in physical form. We have to, again, kind of work on growing our sensitivity to energy, learning how to quiet the mind so we can get clairvoyant messages, learning how to quiet the mind and open up our sort of spirit hearing so we can hear spirit. Using our emotional sensitivities to feel emotions that might come in, feel love coming from someone, or feel the calm that comes in when spirit comes in. It's subtle, and it's we're not meant to be living there all the time. Even me as a reader, I'm not meant to be living there all the time. I'm meant to be having a physical experience. And so when we're in the physical body, we're very locked in most of the time because this is the experience we're meant to be having. We're supposed to, everybody, the hope is that when you come here, you'll awaken, because then you're at your peak power and you can do so much more here as a human. You really are kind of gathering from both worlds. And so you can have a really, really full experience where you're really doing a lot of wonderful work here. So everybody, that's their hope, is that they want to awaken. But we're always kind of, as long as we're in body, we're always meant to be, that should be our primary focus, is this life, and being aware of what we should be working on. And you can see what you should be working on by looking at the patterns in your life. That usually tells you what you should be working on here, what you're working on this time. Now, all of us are working on awakening. That's what we every single spirit here, every single human here wants to awaken so they can be at their peak power and they can do the most that they can here. It's usually easier for old souls because things start to come back and it starts to, oh yeah. It's harder for younger souls, but it does happen. But that's the hope for all of us, is that we awaken. And that's being in touch with that being, that deeper part of ourselves. Otherwise, we are just lost in the ego. And either way, it's fine. because when we go home, we look at our life and we decide, do you want to go back and work on stuff, or do you want to go somewhere else, work on stuff, or what? It's just an expansion. It's just a learning thing. It's a learning and an expansion, and it's very important, because this is the hardest planet to come to. This is, I'm sure you've heard that a million times. This is the hardest planet to come to. And if you're here, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And when we go home, it's a big deal. So I think that the answer is that when you are connected, when you let go of the thinking mind and you're present, that's where you plug into your higher self. That's where you plug into the other side. But don't look at it as though it's going to be like how you are here in this reality. It's felt, it's subtle, it's quiet. It's different. But that is one reason I do like working with orbs, because it does give you that physical experience of seeing something. And that is a big deal when you're incarnate, because that's where we live. If it's, with spiritual things, it shouldn't matter if you see it or not, but it does, because we're human. And if we can see something, it just makes it more real for us, because this is our reality. But truthfully, it's felt, it's subtle, it's quiet. And the more that we can, that's why we work on our ability to pick things up, to pick up the subtlety, to help ourselves become more sensitive to energy, and work on our third eye, and work on our, clairaudience, and work on all these things so that we pick up those subtle messages that come through. The only place we can have those bigger kinds of experiences are when we have like NDEs or OBEs or astral travel, or even lucid dreaming. Those are it does feel more physical. And so, and I know that you've been working on that, Gina, but so gosh, I hope with all that long-winded answer, you got your answer, Gina. Because I think that's part of the problem, is that we expect it to just be like, oh, now I'm here, and now I can see everybody, and I can hear everybody, and it's just never like that while we're in our physical bodies. Because like I said, this is meant to be primary. I said it's about past lives too. We're very curious, and it's very interesting. It's fascinating to think about living in another time, in another body, in another place. But this life is primary. This life is primary, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys. Oh, thank you, Lauren. I am thankful for you guys too. I really, really am. Thank you, Susie. I heard the Raptures Tuesdays. I am not doing dishes or anything. Just in case. I totally agree with that. Okay. Okay. I've had family members come in with long messages lately. I'm channeling them. I'm curious what we can do to foster this safely. I'm not sure I understand your question, Leslie. Are you saying that Oh, I think you mean from the other side. You've had that's why you say you're channeling them. Sorry, I was thinking you were talking about family here. So you're saying your family on the other side has come in with long messages lately. And what you can do to foster it safely. Yeah, when you're doing any kind of spiritual work, just put your protections in place. Tell your guides, I'm going to do spiritual work now. Please gatekeep for me, be there. And then know that they will be. If things, and we talk about in our empath class, that the main thing is that you have to believe you put something in place, because whatever you say, your guides are going to do. They're going to do it. That's why they're there. So if you ask to be bubbled up, or if you ask for just a little bit of protection for lower level energies, but I want to be able to feel everything that's higher energies, or I want to, anything that is for my best good to come in, that's kind of this type of prayer that I would do before I did like mediumship and things, because I want to, if there are kind of lower vibrational messages, kind of like I used to feel shame or something, I have to be able to feel that, because I'm an empath. So I need to have protection, but also be able to feel things as well. So usually I'll say, whatever is for my best good and for the best for everyone listening and that kind of thing, so that I can feel things that might be considered a lower level emotion or something like that. But yeah, just put things in place. Ask your guides to be there, and just ask them to be the gatekeepers, and just, I want to talk to this family member, or only family members that have my best intention or my best, uh, for my highest good, that kind of thing. And then believe that they are there. That's the thing. So if you need like a type of ritual, or you need a candle, or you need crystals, or you need, and it's not that none of these things don't have energy, they do. But if you need that as emphasis for yourself, do that. Sage, things like that, because they do things. But when it comes to asking for protection or asking for our guides to protect us, they're going to do that. If you ask that, all you need to do is ask, basically. But if you like to do something more elaborate so that you feel more comfortable, I've got my crystals, I got my rocks, I've got all these things that help me as well. Do that as well. But if you ask, they're going to come in and they're going to protect you. They're going to do exactly what you have asked for. They really, really are. They're not going to leave you hanging. That's what they're there for. And the only thing you have to do is ask. That's all you have to do. Okay. So I'm looking for questions. Yeah. So Barbara, that's a good example as well. I forgot to put my seatbelt on. I was nudged you to pull over. That's another way that you might feel it like a nagging feeling. I always find that with like either things I'm supposed to do, like when I was doing my deck of cards, it wouldn't quite go away. I kept coming back to it, even though I don't have any idea, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I would start something, I didn't like it, but I kept coming back to it. I kept feeling nudged back. I think that's a good word, nudge. And it's like that as well, where you forget to put your seatbelt on, and then, oh, something made you realize that you forgot to put your seatbelt on, or, oh, I'll put it on when I get to the gas station, but then you think, oh no, I'll just put it on. I feel like I should, so I just will. Yeah, that's a great example of how your guides will speak to you, and not do fear. They didn't show you an accident, or you didn't think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get neck. They don't work that. Yeah, they don't do that. Oh, thank you, James. Said I was a good role model. I appreciate that. I struggle. No, this is, when I'm in this space, I'm always in the present, right? And I know that's where we don't have suffering. It's right in the present moment. But I, like everybody, I'll see something that Humpty Dumpty did, and I'll yell at the TV or whatever. but that's also, part of the human experience. It's part of that. And I think that what's the big overall thing that's happening right now, like I said, if there's a struggle going on right now, it's ego and consciousness. That's the struggle, asleep and awake. And people are being woken up. It's time to move into a higher vibrational level. And so we need as many people awake here as possible so we can do that. So we can move to a higher vibrational level, so we don't have everybody walking around just, listening to their mind, being lost in ego. And we're waking up from that. And usually that is preceded by a dark night of the soul, something that has rocked your reality, that it makes you really question and start to wonder and start to start to see reality as not what you thought it was. It shakes us awake. And so, and you see a lot of that. And I think that all of the administration that we have right now, and all, it's so interesting that it's all built on a facade, right? Lies, smoke and mirrors, and very, very slowly it's getting chipped away, right? And people are, and like I said, this is the year, right? This year and probably part of next year is everything coming out into the open, everything coming out. And it's partly that because a lot of people will be sent into that dark night of the soul. I was so convinced this person was telling the truth. I was so convinced this is how I thought reality was. And it's gonna shake people up. It's gonna rock them. And they'll awaken enough that will move that vibration up. It's also the opportunity where people are going to get repeated opportunities to wake up. That's what I'm getting right now, is that it's not just going to be one thing. It's going to be lots of things. If you're constantly slipping back into the ego, you're going to have other opportunities to wake up, which can be difficult. It's definitely difficult because, like I said, once you are mostly awake, and the way that you do this is just to notice your thinking. Notice your thinking and then call it out for what it is. It's just my thoughts. You know, if I sit down and I start thinking about some grievance, that I had, notice it. Thinking about that thing again. That's so dumb. It happened 10 years ago. Why am I thinking about that now? It's so ridiculous. The light of awareness, And I'll say Eckhart Tolle because that's what he talks about all the time, is that all you have to do is notice it. That's how you break the ego, and you break the spell of the ego, of the illusion, is just by calling it out. Thinking about that again. Or why am I thinking about that conversation with my mom? She's already passed, or whatever it is that keeps you in this identity and keeps you small and keeps you afraid and keeps you, but that's really all we have to do, and do it consistently. And then pretty soon it just does not have the hold over us like it once did. And then how they talked about protecting your energy, right? Trying to stay in kind of a higher vibration, checking in a few breaths a day, just checking in and just, being in the present. And that's what we need right now to get through this time. We'll get the information we need. We'll get it. So that we know what to do. And we also need to look out for each other, right? Really look out for, and not necessarily everything in the whole world, because we can't do that. We're not able to do that. But definitely your neighbors, your family, people close to you. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? What's going on? How can I help? I remember doing a video when I was in England where I had this sort of a message that came through when I handed some stuff to a young girl that was like Cassie's age. She was like in her early 20s, that was homeless, on the street. And the message was to fix what's in front of you, that you'll have opportunities to serve mankind. And so notice what's right in front of you. Notice, be present so that you notice, someone may need help. Someone is crying. Someone is, they can't find where they're going. They need directions or whatever, but the little things are in front of you. Or going through a checkout, and you notice the checkout person look miserable, like they're having a horrible day. Being able to see them and say, hi, how are you? How are you doing? Everything okay? Fix what's right in front of you. If we all did that, could you imagine what a different world we would live in? It'd be a different world, you know? Okay. Okay. Kimmy G, is there such a thing as generational trauma? If so, how do we break it? It's more of almost a psychology question rather than a, but I will ask on a spirit, and I'll ask about it on a spiritual level. So they're saying it's passed down through like patterns of behavior. So if, and patterns of coping, like ways people have found to cope with things. So if you had a great grandfather that was alcoholic, you probably have a lot of people that slipped into the codependent role and slipped into maybe the addiction role, but maybe it was a workaholic, and rather than maybe it was the woman, and the man in the relationship was the codependent one, trying to keep the peace and keep everything together. So that's how it works. But they're saying it's more to do with the way people, the traits people take on, or the ways people find to cope, and the way people find to like the things they put in place to cope with whatever's happened. So that can be that's not always healthy, right? Like if you're, say you have a really crazy alcoholic father, you may have shut down emotionally. That's been your coping, to cope with it, you shut down emotionally. Well, when you have kids and you're raising them and you're very unemotional, very detached, that's going to affect them in a certain way. Do you see? So it's kind of like, so they're saying it's just the way that people, they can repeat the pattern, like be an alcoholic too, or they can have taken on other sort of traits or coping skills that keep the trauma going, but maybe in a different form, right? So yes, and they're saying to break it, see the patterns, follow it back, see the patterns. Where did this come from? A lot of the when I did my a quantum healing session is great for that, by the way. That's really what it is. It's about that, and it goes back to past lives. You can even heal that stuff too. But part of it is knowing what the history is. But in my quantum healing session, I talked about, that our whole one side of our family there's a lot of depression. And what I found out from my quantum healing session is that side of the family are all these empathic women who were in the church, which in the church you're and I don't have negative feelings about the church. I really don't. But one of the things that is sort of emphasized, and it can be the way you internalize it. Some people don't internalize it the same way, but I always felt free to express positive emotions, but not negative ones. So the negative ones you kind of you push down. And as we know, if you took my New Earth class with Eckhart Tolle, that adds to the pain body, so that you get triggered. Some people say something, and all of this emotion will come out because you've been pushing everything down. But that would be a really good example of generational trauma, and it's not obvious, right? It's not an obvious thing, but it's caused a lot of depression and anxiety and some neurosis, kind of neurotic behavior and OCD and stuff. It's all on that side of the family. And I'm like, what is that? And they said it's because you've got all these empaths all in the church where they don't feel free to express themselves in all the ways that they should be able to be free to express themselves, right? So stuff is pushed down. And that's where you have people becoming depressed and becoming anxious and taking on like, OCD things or neurotic tendencies and things like that. That's where it comes from. Or controlling, being very controlling. Yeah. So, but yeah, a quantum healing session would be really, really good for that kind of thing. Especially if you're unsure of like where it comes from or why are we all like this, it would be probably a good way to go. Oh, Clarence, I hope you feel better. Sorry that you're not feeling well. Okay. Kim, what should we expect when people are shifting from 3D to 5D? What will that feel like? And what will we be able to observe in others or ourselves? So, like I said, if Humpty Dumpty is doing any service right now, it's showing us what somebody looks like when they are completely locked into the 3D. Completely locked in, no idea at all. Completely unaware of their higher self, unaware of their spirit, completely in this denseness. And we always talk about it as being, I always describe it as heavy and light. When you're in these really dense 3D, emotional states, mental states, when you're and you have no connection to your spirit, it's so heavy. And you can feel it, right? I mean, even just, especially as Humpty Dumpty ages, he's just, the weight of this life, of the way that he has lived his life is just bearing down on him. You can feel it when you look at him, especially if you're an empath. Excuse me. You can really, really sense it and feel it. But that is what a person completely locked into 3D that isn't likely to move out of 3D. This wasn't the, from what I got from his dad, when I connected with his dad that one time, this wasn't the plan. He's kind of in a different plan, but he's still, like I said, if he's doing a service for us, this is what it is. You don't want to be like this. That's what they're basically using him as. Look, you don't want to be this. But he's had chances, right, to wake up, to see things differently. He's had the chance, but he's so locked in, so locked in. So that's what just 3D. When you're in the 4D, they showed it as like a hallway where you're kind of bouncing, going back and forth from 3D to 5D. And that's where a lot of people are right now. And then the 5D is completely awake, completely conscious, knowing this is just an illusion. And you're aware every time your mind comes in, you just ignore it because you know it's not true. It's just thoughts. You're not at all swayed by it anymore. You completely are connected with yourself as a spirit having a human experience. But it also, when you're in the 5D too, though, you can see that in other people as well. I feel like the 4D, you're still working on it, on yourself. You're still learning to see it in yourself and recognize it in yourself and that kind of thing. When you're in the 5D, not only do you see it in yourself, you see it in everybody else. So you see everybody as a spirit having a human experience, and you can look past the personality and know that there's a spirit there and kind of connect with that on a deeper level. So you're not at all taken in or fooled by not only your own identity, but anyone else's. They're just a spirit. And you know that when they're talking rubbish or whatever, that is just their personality. Is not who they are. You're not fooled by it at all. So the illusion has completely broken for you, and you're not taking it. That's why a lot of people talk about the fact that they're not really, they may see being progressive as a better way, in that people, we do need to be kind, we do need to help each other, be more cooperative, those are very high vibrating ideas and things, and we want to get away from division and that kind of thing. But that's why you don't see people as invested as, I'm a Democrat, I don't like these people. You're less invested in that, and you see more as, I see the way things could be better, and I'm going to work towards that. But you don't do it in a really confrontational or a really aggressive way. That is more ego-based. That's more really, really resistant. When you're in the 5D, you're not taken in by any of this. You know that it's just, but you're working towards what we would see as probably more progressive, moving towards people cooperating and getting food for people, and making sure people are safe, and making sure people, have health care and stuff, because that's how people, that the world would be better, right? Taking care of the earth, taking care of nature, taking care of animals, being kind to each other. You're filled with that. And that's the goal, rather than, I'm going to be a Democrat and I'm going to come and get you. It's not that. And you still may vote. It's not, because that's where you want to move to. That's what you envision. And that's what you think of as being so good for everybody. So maybe you work towards those things, but it's not in a way that's very adversarial. And, and I would say for myself, for sure, I say I spend more time in the 5D, but I definitely have 3D tendencies, and they will come crashing in, and that's okay. I'm still working on it. I'm here. You're right. I would transcend if I were asked to be here. But when they say the 5D, that's what happens, is that the illusion is completely, you don't believe it at all. You don't believe it all, and you see everyone else as a spirit, even through the denseness of a Humpty Dumpty. Even through that denseness, you can still connect with that glimmer of that spirit that's in there somewhere. You more see that than even pay attention to that other this stuff going on outside. It's an illusion. He's just lost. Or he's lost in, his experience, and you just know that. So that's what it will look like. But like I said, if he's doing anything for us right now, he's showing us what it's like to be locked into the 3D, and just the 3D. And especially in the West, it's very ugly. It's very ugly, because and why it's so hard to awaken here as well. I remember when I went to the silent retreat the first time, that was one of the first things she said, is because I said, when you have people from other countries and stuff, but how do they react to this? And she said, it's that they're much more adaptable than Americans. They have like a couple of other things around the world. They have a couple of other retreats, and that it's really hard because we are so locked into our brains. It's really hard to even put away our phones, or at the time it was like your laptop, put away your laptop, put away your phone. There's a competitiveness there. There's all of these things that are so valued in a capitalist society, a consumer society, right? That it's really hard to awaken here. It's really, really difficult. So if you're here and you're in the chat, know how remarkable that is in this environment, this kind of environment that just draws you in and wants to keep drawing you in, that you're awakening, starting to awaken, in the middle of awakening, entering the fifth dimension, wherever you are. It's miraculous. It really is, because this is such a hard dimension, but also a hard place to awaken in. You know, the West is very difficult, very, very difficult. All right, everybody, that looks like we're over the 2 o'clock time. And I'll see you guys Thursday. I'm not sure who we're talking to yet on Thursday. Yeah, so Daniel, I'm going to take this last question because I like this question to end on. So are there other levels we ascend to beyond astral? Yes, there are. And it's funny because I was asking my guides about this earlier today. Isn't that interesting? And I said, you know, wouldn't we want to just go to the highest level and just like go there? Because you have access to whatever you want. But they gave me a really, I think it was a good analogy. And like I said, that's how I work as an analogies. Otherwise, I won't understand a lot of these concepts. But they said that it would be the same as like a kindergartner going into a college classroom. It's like you can go there and you can be there, but things wouldn't make sense to you. You might get bored. You might not understand. You wouldn't fit there. You know, so you can go there and you can see what's going on there, but you wouldn't really, it doesn't connect with you. And that's also the way that college students would act as if a fifth grader came in. They'd probably be like, oh, hello, welcome. And, you know, how are you? And whatever, be very kind and understanding that they're curious. They want to see what's going on. But you'd also know that they're not going to stick around because it's not where they are yet. And so, and I feel like they gave that analogy because there's this understanding that it's just where we are. It's not like a hierarchy. It's not like you're down there and we're really up here. It's not that. It's where you are in your learning and in your, you know, it's where you are. And a kindergartner would not be comfortable in a college classroom. They can visit, they can go there, they can see what's going on, but they're not going to really stick around because it's not for them. And they don't understand it yet. They're not there yet. And so that's more the way it's looked at. But yes, there are many, and I don't know how many levels there are. There are a lot. There are a lot of levels. And even calling it levels, I don't know. I would say maybe dimensions might be a better way to put it, or dimensional areas or something. Because levels, again, it gives that like hierarchy feel, and it's not about that at all. It's not about that at all. It's about just where you are in your development and also what you're working towards. You know, some people never come to the earth plane, so they could care less. And they're off doing their own thing. And maybe they're spending lots of time on certain planets or whatever. It's very open. And we choose, you know, because I get really annoyed when I hear people say that this is a prison planet, we have to come out. No, I do think that sometimes, because we do have personalities, you know, our personality goes with us. And if you are a personality who really likes to really, you know, analyze and think about, and, you know, and even that is that ego part of us, you know, but we can have those tendencies as a spirit to really want to see things through to its completeness, or as complete as possible, or as detailed as possible. We have those tendencies still as a personality, as a spirit. And so our personality might be, I haven't done all the work I want to do on fear. So I really want to go back and work on this and really get it right and figure out a lifetime that would be perfect for learning how to deal with fear. And and so for one spirit, that may be really, really important. Another spirit may say, I feel like I got enough from that. I'm okay just leaving it. And so that's that. So we're very much I always say we're ourselves on our happiest, most content, or most joyful, most content, unburdened day. That's who you are as a spirit. lot of times you can think back to yourself as, as if you had a happy childhood as a child, open to express yourself. You just are who you are, and you don't have all the burdens that you get as an adult, or all the conditioning and all that stuff before all that stuff sets in. That's what you're like. You're very, free and open, and you just are who you are, and that's it. So I hope that explains that. And yeah, everybody have a great Sunday and a great week. And I will see you guys all on Thursday. Take care.